Welcome to the You Don't Know What You Don't Know podcast by Innovative Business Advisors. Successful business owners who have started, grown, and led businesses share their journey and direction for the benefit of those traveling the same path.
All right, so let me tell you guys a little bit about this wonderful woman who has joined us tonight. Julie Hamilton is a human resource professional with over 20 years of experience. In 2009, she was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. Now, as a human resource director, she knew all the resources to use and all the tools that were available to her, calling on the Family Medical Leave Act, various workplace accommodations, and other resources in order to be able to do the tasks of her job as she was struggling with this disease. So she really didn't need to worry about her job when she needed to take time off for her flare days or medical appointments. But what happened in a relatively short period of time is she went from rarely taking time off to all of a sudden she was taking 2 to 4 days a month off to deal with this. And then after relocating to Ohio, her chronic illness made it impossible for her to work. So she began to study to become a certified fibromyalgia coach, and she really learned how to manage her own disease. So she really has gone from being in bed 90% of her life to now where she walks 3 miles a day and is a runner and is even participated in her first 10K. And now professionally, she helps other professionals who have fibromyalgia maintain their career and regain their active social life. Her goal is to help companies create an inclusive environment for the chronically ill and assist them in implementing policies to benefit the employee and the employer. She understands what it takes to make it work and can educate both the company and the employee on how this collaboration can work for both of them. Julie, we're honored to have you this evening, and thank you very much for giving us your time so that you can help employers in our community and our networks really understand what can happen when chronic illness affects people at work. So thank you for being with us.
Well, I'm excited to be here and share my passion that I have for this chronic illness message that I share with both individuals and companies. So I'm excited.
So tell us a little bit about your story. How did you come to be diagnosed with this? What did you begin to experience, and tell us how this began to change your life?
Well, I had neck surgery in December of 2008, which repaired that pain, but then I started experiencing all over body pain. And I had a really great general physician, family physician, and within 3 months, he was able to diagnose me. Now, I know a lot of people can go years without getting diagnosed, but I was one of the lucky few where my doctor was really aware of it and diagnosed me. So I was diagnosed early with it. And then I found out that my mom had it, so it can be hereditary. So that's one piece. I was lucky enough to have all of the things that can cause it going on in my life at the time, high stress job, in a marriage that was not really healthy, the sandwich generation, I had trauma, I had surgery, accident, hereditary, you name it. That was me right there. So
lots of factors converged on you at once, huh?
Yeah, it was a stressful time in my life, and but I overcame that, and I started to learn how to manage it, and I flourished between that and taking some medications for it. So I began to flourish on my own.
How did you begin to, I'm really curious about two things, 2 pivot points. A lot of people, and we've had a lot of people in our family that have struggled with chronic illness. A lot of people kind of resign themselves to it. And it's kind of sad to see that, and they just kind of blindly follow whatever the doctor tells them to do and don't really take matters into their own hand. But I just heard you say you began to study it, right? And you really began to understand what was happening. What led you to go out and really become a student of this disease that affected you?
In the beginning, it was just very, very basic, kind of like, what is it?
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the symptoms? Those kind of things. And I kind of just gimped along for a few years. And then in 2015, I moved to Cincinnati, Ohio, and it went into what we call a flare for 4 years. So
Mm.
I was in bed 90 to 95% of the time. I was in so much pain. Um, I couldn't stand taking a shower, clothing touching me, setting up to eat. I just didn't have the energy. And so that's really when it hit me. I got to learn about this. What is it that changed from Nebraska to Ohio? And, one thing I found out is the light bulbs we had in our house. 46 of them, I replaced all of them.
Wow.
It was the weather in Ohio. They have less than 100 days of sun a year. It's the high humidity, the storm patterns setting there. I mean, it was just all of these things. And so I really started doing Google searches and reading everything I could. And then I ran across the International Fibromyalgia Coaching Institute, and I became a certified coach because I wanted to share with others who are going through the chronic illness that I have. Excuse me. I wanted to share what I had learned with them so they didn't have to do all the work that I had to do. And so I really started getting my name out there and working with individuals one-on-one, and I've worked globally with them. And it's not that we have to meet face to face. We can do it over the phone. We can do it over the computer. So it was easy that way. But it was just doing a lot of research, figuring out what is it that changed in my life from this point to this point, and figuring out what those changes and how that affected me. And then I started delving down into energy and diet and sleep and just down, 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 down. And that's what I take my clients through now, is all of that gamut.
How common is this?
It's probably more common than you think. I think right now there's probably about 7 million individuals in the US that have it. But they
Wow.
say 6 out of 10 individuals have a chronic illness, and 4 out of 10 have two or more. So let's take your workplace setting. If I would ask you, do you have anybody with a chronic illness that's an employee there? No, no, we don't have any. Well, that's
Mm-hmm.
because you're not aware of it, or they're too scared to tell you. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure you have a few people that have at least one, if not more. And like we were talking about, I think that more and more people are going to be diagnosed with all the stress and everything that happened during the pandemic, and then long COVID, all the effects from that. So I think just as we live here in the US, more stress, more pressure, and especially with women, we think we can do it all. We got to have that really good, high paying job. We got to be the great mom. We got to be the great wife, have the clean house. Our kids have to be involved. And we put all that pressure on ourselves, and we put everybody first, but we don't take care of ourselves first. And we got to change that thought process as well.
And
Um,
and and yet you still outlive us, men.
I know. Um, but like for my disease, fibromyalgia is more prevalent in women than men. But of course,
Interesting.
there's other diseases for chronic illnesses. And a chronic illness is anything that lasts long term. It's not something you get over in 6 months. It's long term,
Mhm.
and you repeatedly seek medical attention. So it could be heart disease, diabetes, cancer, stroke, lupus, thyroid issues, just a whole
Mhm.
gamut of stuff.
Yeah, we've had a couple of members of our organization that experienced that. We had one key member of our company was in a coma with COVID for 45
Mm.
days. So and then a very long recovery coming out of that. And thank God he did fully recover. So it's been a real blessing. And then, as I shared with you earlier, we've got another member of our organization that is suffering with long COVID. And I think the sad thing about COVID is it's so new that they
Mm-hmm.
don't really have any of the medical answers yet. So there's a lot of experimentation, and
Yep.
this long COVID is a real thing.
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And a new challenge for them.
Yep. And one thing we as a society need to remember, not all chronic illnesses or disabilities are visible.
Mm-hmm,
Okay.
mm-hmm,
So I have something, but you can't tell it if you just look at me. If I use a cane or a walker or a wheelchair, yeah, you do, but there's
mm-hmm.
so many more illnesses and diseases that you don't use those other things. So,
Yeah, it is true, and it's I worry a bit about the younger generation too, because I've been reading some of the statistics of the amount of kids in college and so forth that are on various types of medication being treated
hmm
for emotional illnesses and
hmm
emotional disabilities. Truly, yeah,
Yep. Mental
it's
health. Yep.
striking.
Yeah.
It's striking. So you endeavored to learn all you could about the disease, right? And
hmm
I imagine that helped rake you out of this 4-year flare at some point. You
Yep.
yeah,
That and we relocated to
okay.
Arizona because I found out for me personally, and it's different for everyone, okay,
Hmm.
that I don't do well with the weather patterns and the high humidity.
Hmm.
So here in Phoenix, I thrive because it's warm. We have
Hmm.
sunshine almost daily,
Hmm.
very
Hmm.
little, and we have low humidity.
Hmm.
Excuse me. So I'm able to get out there. I'm outside, I'm hiking, I'm walking, I'm running, I'm biking. I'm doing all those things that I could not do when I lived in Ohio. I just like to be active, and that's one of the reasons that I tried to figure out what I could do for myself to feel better is because at the time I was diagnosed, I had young kids at home. Um,
Ah,
I can't remember if they were maybe in grade school, and so I had a lot of years that I had to keep up with them, and I was a single mom for a while, and you just want to be with them and teach them and support them the whole way. And I had to do something to change my lifestyle or my health so I could be there for them.
yeah. They're great motivators in that regard.
Yeah.
But you went beyond learning about it. You actually went and began the process of becoming a certified coach. So
hmm
again, I think you were that rare individual that doesn't just follow the doctor's orders. You went out and learned everything you could about it, and then again another switch kind of flipped, and you became a coach. Tell us a little bit about you know what led you to that decision, and then I know you've got to invest a lot of time and effort to go get those certifications. So that was
Yeah.
another major commitment and life change.
Yeah. Um, for me, I was in the HR field and I developed mentor programs
Hmm.
and I've always had the joy of working with people to make them be better at what they're doing or have a better life. So I've always had that mentorship, and I
Hmm.
kind of see coaching as that. So I wanted to take these people, and I know that's kind of derogatory, but individuals with challenges with chronic illnesses and help them make their life better so they could have a life full of joy. And I think that's important because when we wake up in the morning, it's our mindset can help determine the kind of day we're going to have. If I wake up and I'm negative, I'm going to have a crappy day and I'm going to feel bad and things are just going to go downhill all day. But if I
Mhm.
wake up with a positive mindset, I can make myself feel better and I can determine I'm going to have a good day. And I
Mhm.
think that's just starting with that aspect and changing our mindset and going from there can also help our health. And then I just took it a step further and taught people what I had learned and how I learned to manage my health, what they could do to manage their health. So,
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, that's quite a change. But
yeah,
instead of going back to being a human resource professional, you decided to go full time into coaching.
I did. I did. Um, I, to be honest, I just knew I couldn't work the hours and the high stress that an HR position has.
Yeah.
And I would tell you, I loved my job. I absolutely loved it. I am one of those HR geeks, and I just thrive on all that stuff everyone else hates. Um, but I knew that I couldn't work those long hours and demands and all the stress anymore because fibro had taken the toll on my body and
Mhm.
all of that. And so I decided to switch my passion into helping others. So it's still kind of that mentorship coaching area.
Do you find you get at least as much satisfaction from your coaching job as you did from your HR professional life?
I do, and the reason is because with my clients, they're struggling at work to have their bosses understand what they're going through, or they don't know anything about Family Medical Leave Act or what accommodations or disabilities. And that's really where I can take that HR hat and I can take that mentorship coaching hat, put those together and help my clients navigate the system with their job. But
Yeah,
then
that's
yeah, and through that I have found that um, companies don't know what to do. They don't know how to work with us. And so I kind of took my HR hat and my clients, what I'm hearing from them, and put that together and came up with this idea of how to help companies learn how to work with someone with a chronic illness.
that's fascinating. I want to come to that in just a second. So,
Okay.
um, part of that was you went from basically working for someone else, being an employee in an organization, to
hmm
now creating your own company and becoming your own boss, if you will.
hmm
Right?
Yeah.
Had you ever had your own company before, or been around folks that had their own companies? Were you exposed to that much?
Um, I hadn't actually owned something, but I had like a part-time job,
Uh-huh.
direct sales,
Okay.
how you can sell Tupperware or
Sure.
baskets or jewelry or all those side companies. So I had over the years I had done a couple of those kind of things to bring more
Yeah.
income. Especially when I was a single mom, I needed some additional income. So I did a few of those. So it's kind of like just organizing your time is
Mm.
really it and being knowing what you want to get done for the day and making sure you did it and not get distracted by all those things like the laundry or the cleaning or anything else when you're working from your home. So,
Yeah, working from home is a blessing and a curse, isn't it?
yes, it is. Absolutely.
When
Yep.
you first began your journey of working for yourself, what surprised you the most? What did you not anticipate, either good or bad?
In my line of business, the first thing I just thought, well, once people find out I'm a fibromyalgia coach and I have fibromyalgia, of course they want to work with me.
They're going to beat the way to your door, right?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, they're all
yeah.
coming. Come on, And what I found is a lot of people want a magic pill to make them feel better. They don't
Hmm.
want to do the hard work to make themselves feel better.
Hmm.
And it is hard work. And you may have setbacks before you go all the way forward. baby steps and
Mm-hmm.
2 steps forward, 1 step back, those kind of things.
It's
But
not
yeah,
easy to change your life.
no, it's not. No, it's not.
Yeah. So am I hearing you say then from the surprise, there was you discovered you had to do a little sales and marketing and get out
Hmm.
your own bugle and blow your own horn a little bit?
Yeah, and I've never been very good at that. Never been
Okay.
very good about talking about my strengths or what I do well or selling myself
Yeah.
because I've always been HR
Yeah.
benefits, and
Yeah.
I sell the company, I can sell a benefit, I can do all that, but not myself.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-mm. So, yeah, that was my biggest struggle, I think.
Okay. What's the thing you're most proud of in your running your own business now for several years?
Just seeing all the people that I've helped, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that's my reward to know that I have helped those individuals. And every once in a while, I'll get an email from somebody that says, or a text even, thank you. You've taught me how all these coping skills for moving forward. And really, that's the most rewarding thing for me.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic. So let me transition a little bit. Talk to me about we of course, as you know, have this book series called "You Don't Know What You Don't Know," and
Yeah.
we used to, my partner and I used to say the phrase so often in our business that we said, "Hey, we're going to make that the title of our book," because we were always talking to business owners about that kind of stuff. I am I've got to be relatively certain that a lot of business owners don't have any idea how to deal with chronic illness at work. And I was sharing with you before we got started how one of my clients today told me about they were just going through this experience beginning today for the first time. And,
Mm-hmm.
that was the whole topic of the conversation. So share with us a little bit. What do you find with business owners? What are some of the biggest surprises for them? And what do you teach them that they don't know but really need to know in order to effectively, um, work this through with their employees?
I, t- I take things for granted that if you're in HR, you know the laws and you know your policies and you know how to administer them correctly. That's not always the case.
Particularly in
S-
small business.
Yes, particularly. Or employees don't know where to go to ask for leave or job accommodations. So I think there's a little miscommunication or I not miscommunication, but lack of communication there
Mm,
for one. Um, I think that really knowing your own policies and how to administer them according to the law is so important. Um, and also confidentiality.
mm,
I think that's huge in companies. And I'm going to date myself here because I talk about the water cooler, but coffee
hmm.
machine. I don't care.
The break
Gathering at
room. Yeah,
break
whatever you
room.
want to call it. Yeah.
And, a manager might be set 2 managers and 5 subordinate workers all in the break room. And the managers are talking loudly about how Julie has this chronic illness and she's missing a lot of work and what do I do with her and all that. Well, it's nobody's business, and especially a manager to a manager shouldn't know at all. It's only the people that are on a need to know basis, like the manager in HR,
Hmm.
basically. And the subordinates or coworkers don't need to know, other managers don't need to know because maybe I don't want anybody to know. Maybe I'm such a private person, I don't share any of that.
Hmm.
That's important. So I think just training in general for everyone in your company is important.
Hmm.
And just communicate how to do things and deadlines. I mean, as you can see, I just keep coming up with all of these things. But there's just so many things that go along with it and, that can throw something out so easily. So,
Yeah, and many of those things you talk about, uh, I've been around longer than you have in that regard, but we used to think of those things as the fundamentals. So,
hmm
I'm shocked in the world today that training, for example, go to any fast food restaurant with one or two exceptions, and I always call out Chick-fil-A as the easiest exception to make. Man, it just seems like training has gone the way of the buggy whip. They just don't, companies just don't seem to do it anymore.
no,
And you see that everywhere you go in every business that you interact with. And I think we do people a disservice by not providing that level of training. When I was first starting, they put me through a full mentorship. I basically started in the restaurant business, and my first 90 days, were basically starting as a busser, working my way up to dishwasher, and then I had to do all the back office and all the front office before I
hmm
could go in and run my own location, right? And
right.
nobody does that anymore.
No, no, they don't. And I think training is so important, but
Hmm.
I think we also find ourselves that we're trying to do more with less.
Hmm.
And so that's the piece that kind of gets overlooked.
Hmm. Hmm. And
So,
I think we've been just a little bit, and I'll get off my high horse after this, but I think we've been a little deceived by, right person, right seat. And I heard someone late in my career say, no, the way to really think about it is you're designing a job so that the average person working at the average pace can fulfill the requirements of that job, right?
mhm,
Quit looking for the exceptional in every particular position.
yep,
Your role is to create the work to fit the person rather than trying to find some superhuman person that can do more with less, as you said. Yeah,
yeah, because I think you'll always have that position open
right.
because that person could be 1 in 100 or 1 in 1 million that could do that exact thing the way you want it.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
yep.
So it's interesting. The what's the biggest thing outside of confidentiality? Do employers embrace what you bring to them in that regard? Are they surprised? And give us a general sense of what you experience when you're working with the employer side of it. And then I want to talk about, the employee that's going through this. What's their experience?
I think that there's still some pushback. They don't see the need in it. But what I try to stress to them is if you learn how to work with someone with a chronic illness, it can affect your bottom line. And they're like, well, yeah, because they're gone all the time and we have open positions. I said, but if you learn how to work with them, you're not going to have all those open positions. Your turnover is going to reduce. Your absenteeism is going to reduce. Your medical costs are going to reduce. So all of that affects your bottom line.
Hmm.
And if you think about what recruiting costs, depending on the position, it can be to replace one person, depending on the level, it's almost 1.5 of their salary.
Hmm.
And, if you could save that by 10 people.
And the time, you know,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah,
time it takes. Yeah.
exactly. Um, so I think that's important to realize, you may have had a stellar employee that is now struggling because they've just been diagnosed with long COVID or a chronic
Hmm.
illness or something, and so they've decreased. But if you learn to work with them and understand what they're going through and adjust things, accommodate things for them, they can maybe be that stellar employee again.
Do you find employers are pretty receptive to that when you basically explain it to them in those terms?
They they still have a little pushback on that. I guess, they're just not understanding it yet, but I think if once they get into the thick of it and really get it rolling, then they'll appreciate it. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And I think part of that is, we all got to kind of stretch into the learning zone when we're faced with something we just don't know much about.
Because it's so
And
new.
yeah, and we push back on what we don't know about.
Hmm.
Now, as I think about the employees, I mean, I can only imagine for the employee themselves, they're not only dealing with this chronic illness, but it's compounded by, you know, probably guilt and worry about what's going to happen with
Yeah.
work and their livelihood and all that. So completely different perspective on the other side of the table. I'm imagining. Share with us what you find.
Um, I find that I really stress to ask if the company and the employee meet the guidelines for family medical leave. I really
Hmm.
stress that if an employee needs that to go on it, and I kind of have made a checklist for them to make sure that the form's filled out right and they meet the deadlines. Because when they're in a flare, which is unpredictable when it occurs or how long, what they should be doing is being at home and taking care of themselves instead of worrying about their job. Am I going to lose my job? And, you know, the stress of all that, they should just be thankful they're able to stay home.
Hmm.
The other thing is with job accommodations, they don't know what to ask for. They don't know what they can ask for, what is too much, or, what if it's rejected? And I had one company that their HR department said, no, we want you to go to the doctor every 30 days and get it recertified. And I said, no, that's not the law. And so I had to go back and say, no, that's not the law, and explain that to them, you know.
Hmm.
So I've helped with that. And then I've also helped individuals with disability when they're out,
Hmm.
just I come in kind of like a doctor with the notes and how we've met and what we've worked on to feel better to help them get that disability when they're off work for a while.
Yeah, it's awesome. It sounds like you're able to make a big difference on both sides of the table
Yeah,
and get them to work together.
yeah. Um, I think that's been a really good tool for both sides and both areas. Because I think that when someone with a chronic illness goes to work, we should make sure or feel that we can do our job and we're part of the culture. And I
Mhm.
want the companies to create that culture of inclusivity, where everyone is a part of it and not just shunned because you missed 10 days or, just mesh these two worlds together.
Mhm.
So, but yeah.
It's fascinating. Do you ever read many business biographies?
Yes, I do.
Have you ever read Henry Ford's biography?
No, I'm going to
Well,
have to now.
yeah, now you got to go read it because I think he has a chapter, but certainly a very extensive section on. He was, he was the first in many regards, right? First
Hmm.
big company and all that kind of stuff. But one of the things he was the first at was accommodations for people that had disabilities and illness.
Mm.
And he writes in his biography, he writes his philosophy in that regard. And I often say I wish they would make it required reading in business school.
Oh, yeah.
So
That would be awesome. That would be
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Any event, it's really fun to watch you light up as you're talking about what you do. So I can see this brings you an awful lot of satisfaction and joy.
Yeah. It really is a true passion of mine. And to be honest, for a long time, I never talked about my illness. I was didn't want people to judge me. And I thought, that's not a way to live. And the stress of people finding out, you should be more open. And I think that's what's really also helped me in changing my mindset every morning when I get up.
That's incredible. That's a big thing. That is the big thing.
Absolutely.
Listen, you're now the authority on this. You've written the book on it.
Yes, I have.
So tell us a little bit about your book. Where can people find it? And then I'd like you to tell us how can people get in touch with you if they'd like to learn more and potentially talk with you about engaging your services for them personally or for their business.
Okay. So my book is called Chronic Illness at Work: How Managers Can Support Employees with Chronic Illness. And it's available on Amazon. So you can go there and order it. And it's just kind of explains to employers things that they should go through and checklists. And it also has some case studies in there so they can really do some real-time learning, is kind of without me actually being there, but some learning through that kind of stuff. So I think that's really good for them. But they can contact me through my website, which is coachingpi.com, or they can send me an email at jhamilton@coachingpi.com.
Wonderful. Well, Julie, it's been a delight to meet you and to have this discussion with you today. I know it'll be beneficial for business owners. You're going to be there when they need you the most and when they face these things. And we know the odds are not in their favor. Eventually, it's going to catch up with them, and they're going to, if they've got employees, they're going to experience this at one point or another. So we're delighted to be able to point them to an outstanding resource in that regard. And we just want to say God bless you in the work you do. Thanks for coming to join us today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a great time. I've had a lot of fun sharing my information.
Well, you certainly light up as you're going through this, and it's always fun to talk with people that are so inspired by their work, and I'm sure you will be helping an awful lot of people as you move forward. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the You Don't Know What You Don't Know podcast. We invite you to visit www.youdon'tknowwhatyoudon'tknow.com and sign up to receive updates on upcoming episodes. You can also let us know if you'd like to be a guest or recommend a business owner to be interviewed. Find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, where you can like, follow, share, and join our efforts. Thanks for listening. We hope you join us again.